After reviewing all the relevant information, you should now be ready to start filling in the Applicant application form. In this tutorial, we will be providing you with some tips to better guide you through the process. The examples used are dummy data. By clicking on the Applicant application form link, you are directed to the welcome page with a brief introduction on the project and the open call. By clicking on Next, you are directed to the Applicant Entity page. Here, you should provide us with information about your entity, namely the legal name, the VAT or tax registration number, the headquarters address, the country, the date of legal registration establishment, and the website. Please ensure that your entity is established in one of the 16 moderate or emerging innovator countries, as this is one of the eligibility criteria, and that your entity was established or founded before January 1st, 2024. You should also reply to a series of questions to ensure additional eligibility criteria. Does your applicant have at least one woman holding a founder or C-level position, maintaining a minimum of 25% ownership or equivalent decision-making power? Has the entity completed its business coaching plan? Has the entity achieved market product fit or have raised at least a round of financing, seed or later? Also, you should let us know if your entity has been identified in Horizon Europe and or in the Digital Europe program, or if it has received funding by national programs. If it has, you should clearly identify the program's funding it has been part of. Please be aware that double funding is not permitted. You may find more information on this on the open call guidelines. As mandatory parts of the application form, you should submit a series of annexes as described in the next section. You should download the templates, fill it in, and then upload. Annex 1 is the legal entity form and official related supporting documents. Annex 2 is the Women's Leadership Declaration and description of the leadership structure. Annex 3 is the business coaching plan. And Annex 4 is the market fit or an investment documents. These annexes are mandatory, so please do not forget to fill in and upload. You should also provide us with the contact details of the person we can reach out to for any follow-up communications related to this application. Those contacts will remain confidential and will only be used for the purposes of the application process. The next section is on the scope and priorities. We want to ensure that your project is aligned with the AppicX scope and priorities. It is of the utmost importance that you read thoroughly the section 1.3 scope of the open call in the guidelines to ensure that you are familiar with the terms used in this section. You should select multiple options where applicable. For the sake of this example, we are only using one example. Here, you should select the deep tech technological domains. For this case, we use artificial intelligence, the industrial sectorial fields of application, and the quadruple helix nodes. You should also identify which innovation and equality barrier your project addresses. Gender-related challenges are compulsory to address, so you must always select that option. It is also important to identify which unbiased mission your project will seek to address. In this case, you should select one maximum. In the next section, you are directed to the technical description page. Here, it is important to provide a link, shareable link, for example, for YouTube, Vimeo, or cloud storage to your 2-minute pitch video. This link cannot expire and must be open access. So you should provide the link here. Then for the next part, you should provide relevant information on how your project aligns with the AppicX scope. How does your project align with the deep tech domains in the industrial sectors previously identified? Describe the target actors previously identified, and describe thoroughly how will they be engaged or benefit from your innovation. Lastly, how does your project address gender-related barriers? Please ensure that you are detailed, but also that you comply with the limits of characters. In this case, you have 40,000 characters to use. The next question is on the unbiased missions. And by unbiased missions, we are talking about missions, initiatives, or objectives that actively avoid perpetuating gender stereotypes. If you want more information on the glossary and the terms used, please refer to the open call guidelines. In this particular section, in this particular question, we want you to let us know exactly what is the technological advancement of your project, why is it original, compare it also to the state of the art, and how does it contribute to the unbiased mission that you previously identified. It is also important, in the next question, to clearly state the needs analysis, the needs assessment, and business coaching plan. You need to provide a plan with clear goals for the 15-20 days of business coaching. You need to describe the main challenges and opportunities. How does the business coaching plan addresses it? How are these needs related to your regional context? And how do these needs respond to your target group's needs? Next, you need to clarify what is the European added value of your project. How do you generate value? And how are you going to scale it up and ensure a broader uptake of results? The next section, or the next part, is on the impact and market potential. You need to describe the short, medium, and long term impacts, namely on your organization's growth, your market positioning, and the overall sustainability. Next is the technological, societal, environmental, and economic impact within the regional ecosystem. So, how does your project contribute to your region's technological, environment, economic impact, and how does it align with your country's smart specialization strategy, S3? Lastly, you need to let us know how what is the quality and feasibility of your work plan. So you need to explain clearly what is your proposed methodology and work plan, ensuring it aligns with your project's objectives, the startup's maturity level, innovation stage, and growth potential. You also need to describe the key team members of your project, highlighting women in leadership roles, and describing how their skills, experience, and available resources will contribute to the successful project's implementation. Lastly, you need to explain the cost effectiveness of your proposed budget, up to 60,000 K, and including the business coaching and the mandatory travels as we will explain in the next section. Ensure that this section or this question or the budget aligns closely with the work plan and expected outcomes, and ensure that you clearly identify here how. In the next section, it's about we are going to detail the budget, forecasting, and planning. And here you need to clarify exactly, you need to let us know exactly the amounts that you foresee for your budget, breaking it down into the following categories: personal costs, subcontracting, travel and accommodation related expenses, equipment, other goods, works, and services. You will see here that adding up, you see that it does add up to when you change the values. And in this case, please ensure that the total grant amount is 60,000. It was above on purpose. So you see that when you change the values here, the value below also changes. Also ensure that for subcontracting, you must include a compulsory 20,000 allocation for business coaching. And here on travel and accommodation related expenses, you must include at least three travels: the on-site cross-fertilization meeting, the mobility scheme, and the participation at the EPICX demo day. These are just reference values to let you know how this automatically calculates. Below, you need to explain the breakdown and the rationale of the budget that you provided in the section. So for personal costs, it's the estimated expenses for staff working on the project. Subcontracting, you need to include costs for the external providers, namely the business coaching. Travel and accommodation, any costs related to travel, transportation, accommodation, and per diems, ensuring that are linked to project activities, and also including the mandatory travels as described before. For equipment is a cost for purchasing or using equipment essentially for carrying out project activities, and for other goods and services are expenses linked to the certification costs, production of communication materials, for example, software licenses, and it must be considered also the cost related to the co-organization of the multiplier event, which is mandatory. This event can be held online. In the next question, or in the next section, it's the ethics self-assessment. So here you need to ensure that you reply to all the questions regarding ethics. Some of these questions, for example, here, trigger another question. For example, if the activity involves human participants, no. But if you reply to yes, you need to clarify if they are volunteers, if they are healthy volunteers, if they are potentially vulnerable individuals or groups. So there's a section on humans. There's a section on human cells and tissues. For the sake of this example, we do not have any activity involving use of human cells and tissues. There's a section on protection of personal data. And there's a section on animals, which in this case, in the example, we also do not involve animals in the activity. A section regarding third countries. For example, here, if you reply yes, you trigger additional questions, but for the sake of the example, we will say no. And a section on environment, health, and safety, and a section on artificial intelligence. In our example, we listed artificial intelligence as a sector, so in this case, we are clarifying which type of artificial intelligence systems is involved in the example provided. After replying to all the ethics questions, please ensure that you reply to them all, but especially the ones that have an asterisk, as these are mandatory. You must provide with additional information, including a detailed explanation of the objectives, methodology, and potential impact of the ethical dimension, and the compliance with the ethical principles and relevant legislations. After this section, you can click on Next, and we reach to the last section, which is the declarations. So you must confirm to the best of your knowledge that neither the project as a whole nor any parts of it had benefit from any other EU grant, as I mentioned before regarding the double funding. We confirm that you need to confirm that the information presented in this proposal is correct and complete. And you need to declare that you have been fully compliant with the eligibility criteria, you are not subject to any exclusion grounds, and you have the financial and operational capacity to carry out the proposed activity. You also must read, understood, and accept the privacy policy. We suggest that you go through the application form once again to ensure that you have replied to everything that is mandatory and that you provided all the relevant information. And once you're done, you click on Submit. If you click on Submit and there are questions that are not addressed and are mandatory, you are directed to those questions. And you also see here, when you are completed, you have the 94 out of 94 and the green and the bar completely green. So if you haven't, it's probably because you are still missing some information. But for the sake of this example, we are done with the application form and you can click on the Submit button. And now a new page you are directed to a new page where you receive the information that you have submitted successfully your application, and you receive a contribution ID that you should copy since you may need it for the future. The results will be communicated by 6 March 2026, and you can always contact or visit the website for any updates. And you can print or get the PDF of your application form.